So I was reading the novel To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. You know how sometimes a scene is so striking that you just want to reread it, to replay it like a new favorite song over and over? That's exactly what happened to me in this scene. And the poem that drew me in is called Luriana, Lurilee. I wonder if it'll put you under the same spell as it did to me. Here's the full text of the poem. Come out and climb the garden path, Luriana, Lurilee. The China rose is all abloom, and buzzing with the yellow bee will swing you on the cedar bough, Luriana, Lurilee. I wonder if it seems to you, Luriana, Lurilee, that all the lives we ever lived and all the lives to be are full of trees and waving leaves, Luriana, Lurilee. How long it seems since you and I, Luriana, Lurilee, roamed in the forest where our kind had just begun to be, and laughed and chattered in the flowers, Luriana, Lurilee. How long since you and I went out, Luriana, Lurilee, to see the kings go riding by over lawn and daisy lea, with their palm sheaves and cedar leaves, Luriana, Lurilee. Swing, swing on the cedar bough, Luriana, Lurilee, till you sleep in a bramble heap or under the gloomy churchyard tree, and then fly back to swing on a bough, Luriana, Lurilee. So that name, Luriana, Lurilee, and the rhythm of those stanzas got stuck on my head for days. Maybe it'll stick with you too. So how does this poem fit into Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse? Well, To the Lighthouse is a modernist novel in which, to be honest, nothing much happens. We follow the large Ramsay family and their guests through a very thin plot. One day at their summer house, they plan to take a boat to the lighthouse visible from the shore, but the weather prevents it. 10 years later, some of the same characters return, and this time they make the trip. This novel is written in third person, but the perspective shifts fluidly among the different characters, giving us access to their inner worlds more than external events. Now let's set the scene where the poem appears. The Ramsays are hosting a dinner party, and Mrs. Ramsay is trying to preserve harmony among the guests. The meal seems to be winding down, and she is looking for a graceful way to bring it to a close when her husband starts to recite a poem. She becomes unexpectedly enchanted by it, and so do we as readers. Woolf only gives us fragments of the poem, weaving it together with Mrs. Ramsay's reflections on the transient, shimmering quality of life. The words, "she was looking at the window," sounded as if they were floating like flowers on water out there, cut off from them all, as if no one had said them, but they had come into existence of themselves. And all the lives we ever lived, and all the lives to be, are full of trees and changing leaves, Luriana, Lurilee. In the passage, Woolf uses imagery like floating like flowers on water to reveal Mrs. Ramsay's sense of life's delicate, transient beauty. The poem's lines seem to arise on their own, expressing a truth that she has felt but never articulated, that life is made of brief, shimmering moments that shift and vanish, and that time and experience are all in constant motion. She did not know what they meant, but, like music, the words seemed to be spoken by her own voice, outside herself, saying quite easily and naturally what had been in her mind the whole evening while she said different things. She knew, without looking around, that everyone at the table was listening to the voice saying, "I wonder if it seems to you, Luriana, Lurilee," with the same sort of relief and pleasure that she had, as if this were, at last, the natural thing to say, this were her own voice speaking. The poem for her feels like the embodiment of thoughts she's carried silently all evening, briefly dissolving the boundaries between her inner life and the shared life at the dining room table. She senses, without even looking, that everyone at the table hears the lines with the same relief that she does, as if the poem articulates something that they had all been feeling in private. Mr. Ramsay's recitation becomes a communal moment. And then, as she leaves the room, she feels the moment already passing. With her foot on the threshold, she waited a moment longer in a scene which was vanishing, even as she looked. And then, as she moved and took Minta's arm and left the room, it changed. It shaped itself differently. It had become, she knew, giving one last look at it over her shoulder, already the past. The history of Luriana Lurilee is a little esoteric. It seems that this poem was something shared privately between Virginia Woolf and her husband, Leonard Woolf, since it appears in the autobiographical account of his time serving in Ceylon from 1904 to 1911. It was written by Charles Elton in 1899, but it was not published until 1945. At least for me, this adds to the feeling of being part of the club, maybe part of the Bloomsbury group, as it was called. A friend group of writers, intellectuals, artists, and philosophers who met in Woolf's home in the Bloomsbury district of London, and which included the economist John Maynard Keynes and the novelist E.M. Forster. The poem was likely known in this circle only until 1945. For me, the dreamy, ethereal quality of Luriana Lurilee places it halfway between sleeping and waking, like a lullaby. In tracing its spiritual lineage back through time, I am reminded of the American writer Eugene Field, active in the late 19th century and called the poet of childhood. Compare Luriana Lurilee to this poem called Hey Ho, My Dearie. A moonbeam floateth from the skies, whispering, Hey ho, my dearie. I would spin a web before your eyes, a beautiful web of silver light, wherein is many a wondrous sight of a radiant garden leagues away, where the softly tinkling lilies sway, and the snow-white lambkins are at play. Hey ho, my dearie. A brownie stealeth from the vine, singing, Hey ho, my dearie. And will you hear this song of mine, a song of the land of murk and mist, where bideth the bud that dew hath kissed? Then let the moonbeam's web of light be spun before thee silvery white, and I shall sing the livelong night. Hey ho, my dearie. The night wind speedeth from the sea, murmuring, Hey ho, my dearie. I bring a mariner's prayer for thee, so let the moonbeam veil thine eyes, and let the brownie sing thee lullabies. But I shall rock thee to and fro, kissing the brow he loveth so, and the prayer shall guard thy bed, I trow. Hey ho, my dearie. This poem is even more overtly dreamlike, spinning a web of silver light, filled with softly tinkling lilies and snow-white lambs, images that feel weightless and musical rather than solid. Both poems present scenes that are not grounded in narrative, but kind of float along like impressions. In both, beauty lies in transience. Images appear, glow for a moment, and then dissolve, leaving behind the sense of something tender, fragile, and half-remembered. Or to go back even further, the origin of so much lullaby dream fantasy, the fairies of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Come now a roundel and a fairy song, then for the third part of a minute hence, some to kill cankers in the musk rose buds, some war with rear mice for their leathern wings, to make my small elf's cloak, and some keep back the clamorous owl that nightly hoots and wonders at our quaint spirits. Sing me now asleep, then to your offices, and let me rest. I learned today that rear mice is the plural form of rear mouse, which was Middle English for bats. Anyway, in all three of these sources, I love how the writers present images to the reader. The kings riding by over lawn and daisy lea, the softly tinkling lilies and the snow-white lambkins, and the fairies who war with rear mice for their leathern wings. Each image feels less like a concrete narrative moment and more like a drifting vision, bright and fleeting. What unites them is their dreamlike incompleteness. Rather than presenting fully built worlds, they scatter these fragments, petals on water, and trust the reader to gather them into a personal dreamscape. Woolf knew exactly what she was doing when she let Luriana, Lurilee drift through the dinner party like music. The poem can stay with you the same way it stays with Mrs. Ramsay, looping quietly in the background, shaping the emotional texture of the moment. By the time we reach the end of the scene, if you're like me, those lines will stick in your head for another few days. Luriana, Lurilee. I hope you like this exploration of beauty in literature. If you'd like to see more, please like, subscribe, and shoot me a comment down below. I always love poetry recommendations. Thank you, and see you again soon.